Essays on Untouchables and Untouchability, Political, by Babasaheb Ambedkar. Chapter 1. From Millions to Fractions. 1. Population of the Untouchables long unknown. What is the total population of the untouchables of India? This is bound to be the first question that a person who cares to know anything about them is sure to ask. It is now easy to answer this question, for the census of India taken in 1931 gives it as 50 million. While it is possible now to give more or less exact figures of the untouchable population in India, it was not possible to do so for a long time. This was due to various causes. Firstly, untouchability is not a legal term. There is no exact legal definition of untouchability whereby it could be possible to define who is an untouchable and who isn't. Untouchability is a social concept which has become embodied in a custom, and as a custom varies, so does untouchability. Consequently, there is always some difficulty in the way of ascertaining the population of the untouchables with mathematical exactitude. Secondly, there has always been serious opposition raised by high caste Hindus to the enumeration by caste in the census report. They have insisted on the omission of the question regarding caste from the schedules and the suppression of the classification of the population by caste and tribe. A proposal to this effect was made in connection with the 1901 census, mainly on the ground that the distribution of various castes and tribes in the population changed at large intervals and that it was necessary to obtain figures at each decennial enumeration. These grounds of objection did not have any effect on the Census Commissioner. In the opinion of the Census Commissioner, enumeration by caste was important and necessary. It was argued by the Census Commissioner that whatever view may be taken of by the advantages or disadvantages of caste as a social institution, it is impossible to conceive of any useful discussion of the population questions in India in which caste would not be an important element. Caste is still the foundation of the Indian social fabric, and the record of caste is still the best guide to the changes in the various social strata in the Indian society. Every Hindu, using the term in the most elastic sense, is born into a caste, and his caste determines his religious, social, economic, and domestic life from the cradle to the grave. In Western countries, the major factors which determine the different strata of society, that is, wealth, education, and vocation, are fluid, and Catholic tend to modify the rigidity of birth and hereditary position. In India, spiritual and social community and traditional occupation override all other factors. Thus, where in censuses of Western countries an economic or occupational grouping of the population affords a basis for the combination of demographic statistics, the corresponding basis in the case of the Indian populace is the distinction of religion and caste. Whatever view may be taken of caste as a national and social institution, it is useless to ignore it. And so long as caste continues to be used as one of the distinguishing features of an individual's official and social identity, it cannot be claimed that a decennial enumeration helps to perpetuate an undesirable institution. The objections to the enumeration by castes in the censuses were urged with greater force on the occasion of the census of 1911 when the special questionnaire containing 10 tests was issued for the purpose of grouping together castes which satisfied those tests. There was no doubt that those tests were such as would mark off the depressed classes from the caste Hindus. It was feared by the caste Hindus that this circular was the result of the Muslim memorial to the Secretary of State, and its aim was to separate the depressed classes from the Hindus and thereby to reduce the strength of the Hindu community and its importance. This agitation bore no fruit, and the objection of separately enumerating in the census report those castes which satisfied those 10 tests was carried out. The agitation, however, did not die out. It again cropped up at the census of 1920. At this time, effort was made to put forth the objection to the caste return in a formal manner. A resolution was tabled in the Imperial Legislative Council in 1920 attacking the caste inquiry on the grounds A. that it was undesirable to recognize and perpetuate by official action the system of caste differentiation, and B. that in any case the returns were inaccurate and worthless since the lower castes took the opportunity of passing themselves as belonging to groups of higher status. If this resolution had been carried, it would not have been possible to know the population of the untouchables. unfortunately, owing to the absence of the mover, the resolution was not discussed, and the Census Commissioner of 1921 remained free to carry out his inquiries in the usual manner. Thirdly, no attempt was made for a separate enumeration of the untouchables by any of the Census Commissioner previous to the year 1911. The first general census of India was taken up in the year 1881. Beyond listing the different castes and creeds and adding up their numbers so as to arrive at the total figure of the population of India, the census of 1881 did nothing. It made no attempt to classify the different Hindu castes either into higher and lower or touchable and untouchable. The second general census was taken in the year 1891. It was at this census that an attempt to classify the population on the basis of caste and race and grade was made by the Census Commissioner for the first time. The third general census of India was taken in 1901. At this census, a new principle of classification was adopted, namely classification by social precedence as recognized by native public opinion. For a society like the Hindu one, which does not recognize their equality and whose social system is a system of gradation of higher and lower, this principle was the most appropriate one. Nothing can present a more intelligible picture of the social life of that large population of the people of India, which is organized admittedly or tacitly on the basis of caste as this principle of social precedence. The end.